it comes to illegal migration, you've seen it come down by more than 90%. Where did that number come from? Because CBP is telling us the number is.
I hear you. I'm about to answer.
136,000 people more.
I'm about to answer you.
If
the dramatics could come down just a little bit. If the dramatics could come down a little bit.
What's dramatic about asking a question about?
Okay, I'm going to answer. So I was speaking to the parolee program. As you know, the president put in place a parolee program to deal with certain countries on ways that we can limit illegal migration, and we have seen the data has shown us that it has gone down by more than 90%. That was what I was speaking to. No, we're gonna go. We're gonna move. Go ahead.
U.S. Code of Law Title 42 is set to expire on May 11th, and this is leading to potentially a huge disaster. If it's not one already. And the avalanche of problems that's about to happen due to an influx of immigrants into the United States in the next coming days and weeks, it's going to be unheard of. But this is what happens when you virtual signal with words only and very little to no action. Right there in that clip, Biden's White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, was being very deceptive in saying illegal immigration is down 90%. But then corrected herself and stated that she was referring to Biden's parole program, which was initiated earlier this year. And this program allowed 30,000 people from Nicaragua, Haiti, Cuba, and Venezuela to enter the country per month with work authorization on a parole for a 2-year period. So due to this program, less people from those countries that were apprehended later on had went down, obviously, which resulted in a 90% decrease. This program is similar to the Ukraine parole program, where up to 100,000 Ukraine refugees had recently entered the country. But what about the people from El Salvador, Mexico, Chile, Honduras, and so on? That's what the administration does not want to address, and they don't want us to know about. So Title 42 was enacted by the Trump administration in 2020 due to the then pandemic. So it was a temporary law that replaced the standard law, which was Title 8. And it placed that law into suspension until the health of the American society improved following the COVID outbreak. I mean, even people that were seeking asylum, where there were refugees fleeing their country, could be apprehended and expelled as soon as possible under Title 42. So with Title 42 expiring, and Title 8 coming back into play, the border along the states, like along the country, like Texas, California, Arizona, and New Mexico, are about to be heavily burdened with this. And people must realize that the border is a federal issue. It's not a state issue. So here in Texas, where I reside, it's not up to Governor Abbott to take care of this, but the Biden administration, which is why they said they're sending about 1,500 troops down here, but not for law enforcement purposes, but to help and aid in the administrative purpose or administrative side with data entry and basically just getting all these people processed into the system as they coming over to this country. Now, look, I know immigration is definitely a complex issue to a degree, but basic common sense always needs to apply. And trust me, I am sensitive to immigration. As my parents, they are immigrants. They came here in the 70s from Jamaica. However, my dad, he always told me that he followed the instructions and he worked and he did what he had to do to get through the process to get his citizenship. He was sponsored by a family member and he got his green card. And like I said, he worked, he paid his taxes, took care of his kids. My mother did as well. And I believe he said he took like a citizen's equivalency test. And within 5 years, they both became U.S. citizens. Now, I know back then things were a little bit different. And of course, they came by plane into New York as opposed to, over the border into the southern states. But my point is, you always have to have a process that is dictated by rules and regulations. And those things need to be adhered to. Because like I said, if you don't have order, you got chaos.
It's difficult to describe, Jim, with words, so I want to walk so you can walk with me and just see the magnitude of the number of individuals who are around this church here just just streets from downtown El Paso. A lot of these individuals you'll see are males, adult males. A lot of the women with children are actually in shelters, in a network of shelters throughout El Paso. As you mentioned, the city of El Paso under a state of emergency. They declared a disaster because of the influx, because they know that once Title 42 lifts, that there is going to be a greater influx of migrants.
You see, that is the bad thing about Title 42, in that regard, was that migrants face very little to no consequence after being expelled. I mean, that's why the revolving door of the migrants attempting to enter the country, it kept going and going, which led to governors of these southern states like Texas, Arizona, and Florida. They start, busing the overflow of migrants into northern cities like DC, New York, and Chicago. Now, you hate to play, with people's lives like that, but those governors basically wanted to maximize the exposure at what was not being done at the borders. I mean, once again, the borders and immigration is a federal issue. Therefore, once a migrant illegally enters a country, the state can't just send them back over the border. So instead, they play this, political football, which is very unfortunate. But if politicians on the federal level are not doing, or at least not attempting to do their job when it comes to immigration, then we need someone that will.
We're going to have strong, incredible borders, and people are going to come into our country, but they're going to come into our country legally. They're going to come in legally. We're going to build a wall. It's going to be built.
Now, the Trump administration did make some strides in building the wall, as at least half of it was built. But of course, to build something like that, it takes money. And although Trump got the funding through the Department of Defense to finishing building the wall, he was stopped by 2 lower district courts, who each stated that the way he went about to getting the funds to build the wall by issuing a National Emergency Act was unlawful. So no wall. That's politics for you. So with Title 42 expiring and a massive amount of people at the border ready to be processed and enter into the country, one must ask, why are we allowing this? I mean, down there in Peru, their government is stopping migrants from passing through their country as people are trying to go from Chile to Venezuela and go through Peru. So they're willing to protect their borders. Why aren't we? I mean, this is evident. It can't be considered a conspiracy theory anymore, not in my opinion. That the thing is that this administration believes in open borders. Therefore, they're globalists. And I'll take it a little step further. So are Republicans. I mean, they love cheap labor. So these politicians, Democrat, Republicans, whatever, they ain't hiding it. Now, just like a lot of things in life, you have your good with your bad. So some things about globalism is beneficial, like free open trade markets, exposure to various cultures and ideas and so forth. But there's also a bad side where your resources and traditions are being compromised. Like I said, I had no problem with immigration, as this is how my parents came here to this country. But this is not an immigration issue because things are being done illegally and out of order. This right here is more of an open border issue that will lead to a more denigrated society. I mean, as a man, if I enter a country and I have no job or means to provide, what am I going to do?
Question about his citizenship. He supposedly had I guess they referred to it as a consulate card from Mexico, meaning he was here legally, but perhaps he had overstayed?
So, Chuck, I won't comment on it because it is an active case.
A massive manhunt continues for Francisco Oropesa, a Mexican national accused of shooting and killing 5 of his neighbors execution style in Texas. We're told the 38-year-old suspect is an illegal immigrant who has been deported 5 times.
So crime will most likely go up. Drug use as well as drug trafficking will most likely go up. And what does a young woman who doesn't have ways to provide, what does she do? Prostitution. So there's nothing really positive that comes from open borders, which is one of the tenets of globalism. So if we as a country really want to help immigrants, then we apply order at our borders and protect it at all costs and not be so easily swayed by ad hominem attacks like being called racist or xenophobic. Now, unfortunately, we're past that point right now. So hopefully things won't be as bad as I think it will be, you know, but I have a feeling by next week, I'll be doing another video on this, you know, so I don't know. But what do you guys think? Do you think our government and our leaders want open borders? Tell me if I'm wrong.